right, I hope everybody enjoys the shiur as much as I enjoyed preparing it. I think it's interesting and I think it's fun. So first, at the end of thank you. At the end of last month's shiur, Mendy asked me, why is there a 2-day Rosh Chodesh? Wouldn't it make more sense? Thank you. Would it make more sense just that have the first day of the Chodesh as the Rosh Chodesh, right? Why do you need 2 days of Rosh Chodesh? So the answer is, it's a two-part answer, right? There's one A and one B. So the first thing is, why do we have alternating 29 and 30 days, right? And the answer is because we're a lunar year. A lunar year is based on lunar months. A lunar month depends on the orbit of the moon around the Earth. The moon completes its orbit around the Earth in 29 and a half days. It's never exact. It varies from 29 days and 6 hours to 29 days and 20 hours. So it's around 29 and 12 hours or so, 12, 13 hours, so 29 and a half days. So that's a month. But so we should have 12 months of 29 and a half days. But it's very unworkable. It's very impractical to have a calendar based on a half a day. You can't, it's right. It's not, doesn't make sense to have a half a day in 1 month and a half a day in another month. So to achieve, now 29 and a half times 12 is 354 days. That's why the lunar year is 354 days as opposed to the solar year, which is 365 days. So to achieve, what?
That's why you have a leap year.
That's why we have a leap year, right? So to achieve the 354 days, since we can't have a 29 and a half day month, we have alternating 29 and 30, right? So if you have 6 months, 29, and 6 months, 30, that achieves an average of 29 and a half. And that I showed you the math. So now we understand why we have some months 29 days, some months 30 days. Now, Chazal, in their infinite wisdom, decided that Rosh Chodesh should celebrate two events. One is the first of the month. That makes sense, right? The other one is what's called the molad. The molad, from the word to be born, is the new moon is born. So we're celebrating the end of the rotation of the orbit of the moon around the Earth. And that happens always on the 30th day. It's 29 and a half. So on the 30th day, right? So now let's go slowly. When you have a 29-day month, so the next day, which would have been the 30th, but now it's the 1st, like now, right? Yesterday was the 29th of Tammuz. Today is the 1st of Av. So when you have a 29-day month, the next day, which would have been the 30th, there's a 1-day Rosh Chodesh. Why? Because it's Rosh Chodesh because it's the 1st of the new month. Today is Aleph Av. But it's also Rosh Chodesh because the molad occurs now, because the molad is on the 30th day, because the moon completes its orbit at 29 and a half days. So when it's at 29 days, the 30th day accomplishes both what Chazal wanted. It's the 1st of the new month and the molad. You want to look up molad in Google. I mean, Google will recognize molad also, but give you the Jewish. If you want to really, we'll talk about it in a minute. When does it actually? It's called lunar conjunction, because conjunction means that it's aligned. So the moon completes its orbit. Now it's between the sun and the earth. So that's the lunar conjunction. But when you have a 30-day month, so tomorrow, let's suppose today is the 30th day of the month. So tomorrow, which would have been the 31st, but we never have 31 days in a month, tomorrow will be the 1st of the new month. So tomorrow will be Rosh Chodesh because it's the 1st of the month. But today is the 30th day. So today the molad happens. Today is when the moon completes its orbit. So we have a Rosh Chodesh also on the 30th month, on the 30th day. That's why, because that's the point. That's the key to understand this, is that Rosh Chodesh celebrates or highlights two events. The calendaric Aleph of the month, first of the month, and the fact that the moon has completed its orbit, which is pretty much in theory, on the 30th day.
So do we know from month to month when the moon completes its rotation, or it could just be random
Right.
from month to month? Otherwise, if you don't really know that,
Right.
then we don't really know when the molad really is.
So let's discuss that. There is an actual molad, which is lunar conjunction, and you can Google and find out every month when the moon is exactly between the Earth and the Sun, completing its orbit, right? And as I said, it varies between 29 and 6 hours and 29 and 20 hours. So it's different. Every month it's different. Why, by the way, why is it different? Right? Why can't the moon be consistent? It's different for two main astronomical reasons. One is the orbit is not a perfect circle. If the orbit was a perfect circle and the moon was traveling at the same speed, then it would be exactly to the second orbit, but it's not. The moon's orbit is an ellipse. See, an ellipse is not a perfect circle. An ellipse is something like this. So an ellipse, it can be wider here. It can be going out more. So the distance is different. Plus the speed of the moon is different. It doesn't always go at the same speed. Apparently, when it's closer to Earth, so let's suppose, picture Earth like in the middle. Here's the Earth, and the moon is going like this. So if it's an ellipse, it's going a little bit like this. When it's closest to the Earth, it's affected by the Earth's gravitational pull. And then it goes faster. When it's kind of out here and it's further away from the Earth and the gravity pull on the moon is less, it goes slower. So both because the speed is different and because it's not a perfect circle, its orbit time varies by many hours. Okay, it can vary by up to 14 hours from month to month. Okay. When we announce the molad, it has nothing to do with the actual lunar conjunction. I mean, it has to do something because it's always on the 30th day, and even that's not true. But let's not get into deep astronomical details because you'll get bored and you'll walk out. But when we announce the molad, there's a set pattern. It's a set interval. It's been the same interval now for 1,700 years. It's unbelievable, right? We always announce that from molad to molad, from month to month. It is always, with a capital A, always 29 days, 12 hours, 44 minutes, and 1 chelek between month to month, right? That's why it's always, you'll hear 1 chelek. Next week, you hear 2 chelakim. So you always add a chelek. What's a chelek? Chelek, which means a portion. A chelek is 1/18 of a minute, or 3.3 seconds. So there are 18 chelakim in a minute, right? That's why you'll never hear, you have never heard, and you never will hear 7 hours and 30 minutes and 18 chalakim. You'll never hear 18 chalakim because 18 chalakim is a minute. So they just convert it to a minute, right? So meaning this past Shabbos, when we announced the molad, it was 7:30 and 17 chalakim. So next month, you won't hear any chalakim because it's 18 chalakim. You always add a chelek. So next month, right? We have a set interval because Chazal, in their absolute genius, set this calendar to go for generations, and it's been going on now for just under 1,700 years. They didn't trust us because everybody was in Gullus and religion was not in such a great place. This was around 350 CE. They didn't trust us to be able to astronomically calculate the lunar conjunction every month. So they set a set interval, right? So there's always a few hours difference between what we announce as the molad and what the actual lunar conjunction is, what the actual molad. It can be different by 8 hours, by many hours. I mean, this month it was 8 hours, okay? Plus when we announce it, it's for Yerushalayim time. So you have to calculate, and I'll get back to that in 1 minute. So that's the thing with an actual molad, lunar conjunction, and molad. The other thing, just as very much as a kind of as an aside, if the moon every month goes around and kind of situates itself, positions itself between the sun and the earth as it completes it, why don't we have a lunar eclipse, right? Or, I mean, a solar eclipse every month, right? Because we only see the reflected light from the sun on the moon, right? So when the moon is over here and the earth is over here and the sun is over there, so the sun is shining on the back of the moon. We never see the back of the moon. So we lose the moon for a few hours. That's what happens every month, right? It gets to be a crescent, crescent, crescent. We lose it for about a few hours, 6, 8 hours, 8 hours. And then we start seeing the crescent again as it's moving, right? So why don't we have a solar eclipse? Why doesn't the moon block the sun every month? And the answer is because it goes between, but not at exactly the same level. That's what I mean. It's a different. So if this is the sun, and this is the earth, and this is the moon, so as the moon goes around, sometimes it's on this level, sometimes it's on this level. It's not always exactly. For a solar eclipse, it has to be exactly. You can have a partial eclipse, you can have a total eclipse, okay? But when you have a solar eclipse, it'll always be at the time of the molad. It'll always be when it gets in between, okay? And the last thing, which might seem like very, very obvious to you, but I want to say it out anyway, because sometimes what's obvious to one person may not be so obvious to everybody, which I think is really an interesting astronomical phenomenon. And that is, sunrise is particular to every location. Meaning, if I told you that this morning sunrise in Yerushalayim was at 6 a.m., so what time is it in Fairlawn when it's 6 a.m. in Yerushalayim? It's 11 p.m. the previous night, right? 7 hours before, right? That doesn't mean that there was a sunrise at 11 p.m. in Fairlawn. That's ridiculous. Sunrise is always in the morning in every particular place. But sunrise, that's what I mean, sunrise is a particular astronomical event for each person, for each place. It's always sometimes early in the morning. The molad is an astronomical event at the same time for the whole world. There's only one molad, meaning when we announced the molad this past Shabbos, 7:30 p.m. That's Yerushalayim time. That means the molad occurred, at least didn't really occur because we announced a set interval. We don't act actual, but let's suppose it was the actual, right? Right? Right. If the molad is in Yerushalayim, if we announce the molad in Yerushalayim at 7:30 p.m., that means the molad was in Fairlawn at 1:30 p.m. At 12:30 p.m. 12:30 p.m., right? And it was in LA at 9:30 a.m. You understand? There's one molad for the world. It's not like sunrise. You understand the difference? I know it sounds very obvious, but so sunrise is particular. The molad occurs at one point, meaning the moon positions itself in its orbit. It's only one moon and only one Earth, and it happens at one time, and you have to figure out the time zones, whatever it is. So it's not like sunrise.
So when they say Yerushalayim time, they don't really need to do that, right?
They don't, but we do it in deference to Yerushalayim because that's where the Chodesh was always declared. So we do it in respect to Yerushalayim. And do that. You're saying a new minhag. Let the Gabbai say, and the molad this month will be Tuesday night, 7:30 p.m. in Yerushalayim, but in Fairlawn, it's going to be at 12:30 p.m. That would be perfectly okay, right? But if they didn't say Yerushalayim, you might think it's the sea. Right.
You would have picked the point on the Earth when the sun's going to make the exact revolution, depending on what you did initially. That would remain the same forever.
Meaning what?
In other words, to go around for exactly a month, you're always picking the same spot.
Between the Earth and the sun.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Now let's get to the fun stuff. This is too much astronomy. It's too much to take, right? So let's do some of this stuff like calendar stuff, not necessarily Rosh Chodesh, but Number two. Two people start a meal. They could be eating together in the afternoon of Rosh Chodesh. They both finish eating at night. After Rosh Chodesh is over, one guy will say Alav V'Yavo, the other guy will not. It's not a test. I'm not quizzing him, right? Right? I'm just making it more interesting, right? The reason is, in general, we go after when you started the meal. Okay? So it applies to Shabbos, it applies to Purim, it applies to Yom, whatever it is, right? The additional stuff that we say. So even if it's not Purim anymore, if it's not Rosh Chodesh anymore, you still would say Gal Nisim Yalav V'Yavo because you started the meal in your day. Except if you daven Mariv. Once you daven Mariv, you cannot say Yalav V'Yavo. Once you daven Mariv, you cannot say Ala Nisim. So one guy daven Mariv and the other guy did. Okay. Just which parsha is always Shabbos Mevarchim? Like this Shabbos was Shabbos Matos Maseh was Shabbos Mevarchim. But which parsha is always Shabbos Mevarchim?
Maseh or Matos Maseh.
No. Gracious. Parshas Gracious is always Shabbos Mevarchim of Cheshvan, because it's at the end of the month. Okay, number 4. These are just I found interesting. After a while, it gets a little. There's even more. I cut it down because again, I don't want to bore you, but situations when Jews in Israel say or pray earlier. I don't mean in time zone because they're always there. I mean, well, they're earlier than us by 7 hours, but they pray earlier than Jews in diaspora. Now we'll say fair lawn, in terms of days. Always say, so for instance, for Saint Talumatar. So in Israel, they always start on Zion Cheshvan. We start many weeks later on December 4th, which is a whole shiur in itself of why the Saint Talumatar is the only exception of where we follow the solar calendar as opposed to the lunar calendar. The Saint Bracha. We start on the second day. I mean, the first one, it's verses. First one is always Israel. Second one is fair lawn. So in Israel, they start saying the same bracha on the second day of Pesach, meaning their first day of Chol HaMoed. We start on our first day of Chol HaMoed, which is the third day of Pesach. So we are a day behind. Yizkor, we say it, in Israel, they say it on the 7th day of Pesach, because that's the last day of Pesach. We say it on our last day of Pesach, the next day, which is the 8th day. And so to Shavuos, they say it on their one day of Shavuos. We say it on the second day of Shavuos. So just another example. Havdalah, right? Havdalah. Since they only have one day, so they'll say it after the first day Yom Tov. The one day of Yom Tov. We say it after the second day Yom Tov. And so too for the 7th and the 8th. And so too for Shavuos. Right? The Megillos, right? They read Rus on their one day of Shavuos. But we read Megillas Rus the next day, on the second day of Shavuos. Shir Shirman and Koheles, which is always read on Shabbos Chol HaMoed. But what if there are 2 Shabbos Chol HaMoed? Meaning the first day of the holidays is a Shabbos. So you'll have the first day. So they'll read on the first day of the holiday. Koheles and Shir Shirim. But we will read it on the 8th day, which is the second Shabbos. Laning V'zos Bracha and beginning of Bereshis. So they read it on Shmini Atzeres because their 8th day is Shmini Atzeres and Simchas Torah. They have one day. We have Shmini Atzeres, and then on the 9th day we have Simchas Torah, so we do that the next day. Just examples where we're done. Number 5, which 2 Friday nights will never have a Shalom Zachor? Which 2 Friday nights will never have a Shabbos Zachor, Shalom Zachor? What did you say? Very good, Yom Kippur, right? Because we usually don't have food parties. That and the other one is no, we'll never have, right? The Seder. You say, what's the problem? Just have the Shalom Zachor after you finish the Seder. The problem is that you can't eat after the Afikoman. So you can't eat. So you'll tell me, okay, so have a Shalom Zachor without food. That's completely heretical. We don't celebrate anything without food, right? You can't have a Shalom Zachor without food. So, right. What's the maximum number of blessings in a Kiddush? So you know that usually Kiddush, we'll say Borpia Geffen and Mekadesh Hashabbos, Mekadesh Yisrael Vazmanim. So usually it's two brachos, but when you have Yom Tov coinciding with Motzei Shabbos, we have to say goodbye to Shabbos and we have to say hello to Yom Tov. So we have the famous Yak Nahaz, right? So we say Bor Priya Gefen, and then we say Mekadesh Yisrael Vazmanim, and then we say Bor Me'orea Eish for the Ner, and then we say Baruch Hamavdo Ben Kodesh LaKodesh, and then we say Zman, then we say Shechianu. So 5. That's not the answer. There's one time that you would have 6.
I call it Yaknahazel, Leishe Basu.
Excellent. When that Yom Tov that matches, that coincides with Motzei Shabbos is Sukkot, you also have Leishe Basukot. So the answer is 6. What's in a situation where you would lane 5 consecutive days, but without a Hallel? This is very tricky.
Oh, Hallel or half Hallel?
No Hallel. No Hallel. 5 consecutive days without a Hallel. This is tricky. So I'll give you a very good clue. Start thinking of holidays in which you don't say Hallel.
Right.
Very good. So if Rosh Hashanah falls on,
Monday, and then
no. Which day will Rosh Hashanah start on?
Tuesday.
No. No.
There are many days left. Pick another one.
Remember, you need a day that Rosh Hashanah will start on, but then you'll lane for 5 days without a Hallel, right? If Rosh Hashanah is on Thursday, so Thursday and Friday you lane because of Rosh Hashanah. Shabbos you lane for the Shabbos, and Sunday you lane. Why do you lane on Sunday? Because it's Tzom Gedalia, and then you lane on Monday. Isn't that a great question? I don't know. I think I'm having more fun than you guys. All right, this is number 8. There's also a 9, which I'll try to fit in, but I came up later. But this to me is really after we talked about announcing the Molad, a unique Birkas HaChodesh. It happened in 1917. It happened in 2004. Now, if you missed it or forgot 2004, don't worry. It'll happen again in 2092. So, but this time you'll be ready for it. What is the thing is, no minutes or halakim were announced. In 1917, for the month of Tammuz, the Molad was announced as Wednesday at 1 a.m. Right? Notice, no minutes and no halakim. In 2004, for the Chodesh of Cheshvan, it was announced that it's going to be on Thursday at 2 a.m. And in 2092, it'll be Friday at 3 a.m. So Abraham, every 87 years, there are no minutes and no halakim. I know, who cares? I know, who cares?
This is Fischer's comment.
I know, no one comment, right? Now something that I really find interesting. Again, it may seem obvious to you, but that's okay. Sometimes obvious things are interesting. On Erev Tisha B'Av, we will say at Shachris, Erev Tisha B'Av, at Shachris, we will say Mizmor Soda. Why? Why do we say Mizmor Soda? So let me explain the question, so everybody really understands the question. Mizmor Soda, which is chapter 100 in Tehillim, correlates with a Korban Toda. Korban Toda was a Korban Yachid that was brought in certain situations. Okay? The Korban Toda you brought an animal, and you also brought 40 loaves. Of the 40 loaves, 10 of them were chametz. It's very unusual. 99% of korbanos were non-chametz, but the shtei lechem and shvuos, lechem, and the Korban Toda had chametz. Okay. When you bring the Korban Toda, when the Beis HaMikdash was up, in situations or days that you bring the Korban Toda, then nowadays we would say Mizmor Soda. No Korban Toda, no Mizmor Soda. So now we don't say Mizmor Soda on Shabbos and Yom Tov. Why not? Because they didn't bring your Korban Toda on Shabbos and Yom Tov. Why not? Because it's a Korban Yachid. There is no such thing as a Korban Yachid on Shabbos and Yom Tov because Korbanos require melachos to bring. A number of melachos do. So a yachid can, an individual cannot violate Shabbos, korban tzibur, like a musaf. For that, it pushes aside Shabbos, not a yachid. So no korban toda on Shabbos and Yom Tov, therefore no mizmor soda Shabbos and Yom Tov. The two other weekdays that we don't say mizmor soda because they didn't bring korban toda. Erev Yom Kippur and Erev Pesach. Why? Because the rule is the korban toda could be eaten for that day that you brought it, plus the night. Okay, the day and the night. If for any reason that time would be curtailed, you cannot bring a korban toda. So Erev Yom Kippur, when the Beis Hamikdash was up, Erev Yom Kippur, an individual could not bring a korban toda. Why? Because at Shkia he would have to stop eating it, right? Because it's a fast day. So since the time permitted to eat the korban toda would be cut short, so therefore you can't bring a korban toda. Same thing for Erev Pesach. An individual could not bring a korban toda the morning of Erev Pesach because at Chatzos you would have to stop eating it because it's chametz. So I ask you, how can we say mizmor soda on Erev Tisha B'Av? It should be the same like Erev Yom Kippur. Erev Tisha B'Av, if we're in korban tamid, at Shkia I'll have to stop eating because it's a fast day. So why do we say mizmor soda? You have to speak out the analogy. Let's do that, and then you'll see. The analogy is, or the way the thinking is, had there been a Beis Hamikdash, would I have been able to bring a korban toda or not? The answer is yes, then I say mizmor soda now. The answer is no, then I don't say mizmor soda. So, Erev Yom Kippur. Had there been a Beis Hamikdash, I couldn't have brought a korban toda in the morning on Erev Yom Kippur because a few hours later at Shkia, I would have had to stop eating. Had there been a Beis Hamikdash, there would be no Tisha B'Av. Had there been a Beis Hamikdash, there would be no Tisha B'Av. So on Ches Av, I can bring a korban toda. I wouldn't have to stop eating at night. There's no Tisha B'Av. Do we have a Beis Hamikdash? So since had there been a Beis Hamikdash on Ches Av, I could have brought a korban toda. Therefore, nowadays on Ches Av, on Erev Tisha B'Av, we say mizmor soda. I thought it was short, no? Yeah.
Or hearing you have this, I think that you would say, you would be. That's the other way. You go today, so you'll be eating.
So then we won't say mizmor soda, you're saying?
It could be rebuilt. It could be rebuilt on Fischer, so you can definitely eat it.
Oh, if meaning I should say, but maybe the reason we say it is because maybe the Beis Hamikdash will be built today. Tonight, I see. Okay, that's the optimist with a capital O, the real believer. Okay.
So your bench, please.
No say Hazara. No say Alumota. We have 10. Okay. Well, we're time of our Yehi Shem Lemerach Me'atav Olam. Bereshut Ma'anan Ma'anan Ma'atayin Varech She'achalnu Mishalom. Baruch Shechem Shalom D'Bo Chayinu Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Hazan HaOlam K'lo B'Do B'Chein B'Chesed Rachamim Hu Noten Lechem L'Chol Basar Kilam Chesdo Uv'Tuvo HaGadol Tamid Lo Chasaranu V'Al Yechsaranu Mazon L'Vayet Babush HaGadol Ki U'El Zan P'Nes L'Kol Meki L'Kol Meki Mazon L'Chol B'Tov Shevara Baruch Atah Adonai Hazan Et HaKol. Baruch Atah Adonai Al Haaretz V'Al HaMazon. אין עולם תן יעלה ויבוא ויגיע ויראה וירצה וישמע יחכה ויזכר זיכרון זיכרון כל עמך וישראל קדח ותג ולכן לחץ ורחם לכם שלום יום ראש החודש הזה זכרנו לירושלים עיר הקודש ואומרים ברוך אתה אדוני בונה ברחמיו ירושלים אמן ברוך נמך בורנו יצאנו כשם כשקר מכל טוב לעולם על יחסרנו. עורך כל המסובים כמותם ואותם כמו שנתברכו כן נראה ניסב רחם נמצא חן ושכל טוב בנוי ולרחמן הוא יחדש לנו את החודש הזה לטובה ולברכה נמשך אוכל הבא לגדול יש בו שכל גם זה גם לא ראיתי וזה אומר שלו לכם אדוני עוזר המתאים אדוני יברך את עמו והשלום. Again, thank you to Mendy and Honey for allowing us to observe Rosh Chodesh in a Mahuda way by having a Seuda.
Thank you for giving it. Bottom line is 3. So let's take a 2-day month, right? So when you're taking in Rosh Chodesh at night, technically it might not be Rosh Chodesh yet. No,
Because of the Molad, you mean?
With the Molad.
Yeah.
It could happen overnight. It could happen.
Now, I will tell you.
There could be parts that basically is really not Rosh Chodesh for the 2-day month, especially. No? I mean, how long does this stay, the status of the Molad exist?
Once the 30th enters,
yeah.
So sometimes on the 30th, the Molad will occur. So that's the Molad. But I will tell you, anyone's in, it's this kind of in theory that's why we have 2-day Rosh Chodesh. That is why that's absolutely true. Just the way the calendar works out, because it hit me, as I prepared for this. So this was in my mind, right? On Shabbos, when they announced the Molad, they announced that it was in Yerushalayim, 7:30 p.m. Yesterday was Tuesday. The Molad was Tuesday, 7:30 p.m. And it hit me, wait a minute, 7:30 p.m. on Tuesday is on the 29th month. Yesterday was the 29th of Tammuz. It's before Shkia. So what happened to the rule? So I emailed Rabbi Yisrael Reisman from Torah V'das. He's a genius, period. He's a genius in astronomy and in this. And most of my knowledge is from a book that he published, right? So I emailed him. I think he's in Israel. He usually goes to Israel for the summer. And I wasn't sure he was going to answer because who the heck am I? I mean, when he gets an email from him, so I emailed him that I thought the Molad was always on the 30th day. That's why we have a 2-day Rosh Chodesh. Right? It's in the 29th day. So he emailed back. I was shocked. I should save that email, So he emailed back.
Frame it.
Yeah. He emailed back that the way our calendar works, that often following 30-day month, the Molad is very often on the 29th day.
Really?
Now, I did not email because I thought it would,
Don't push the envelope.
Don't push the envelope. So if it's true that often, like he said, often, following a 30-day month, the mola will be on the 29th, right? No, of course it doesn't exist. Meaning today's Rosh Chodesh because it's the first of the month,
Right.
not because the mola was on the 30th day, right? But what is true, I believe that this is what I'm saying now is true. But following a 29-day month, and you now have a 30-day month, I'm gonna go back now and check the past year's molads. But I would believe that following a 29-day month, the molad will always be on the 30th day.
Yeah,
So that we have Rosh Chodesh, right?
I think it's just all averages. It's like they kind of average it out. I don't think it's exact numbers. Are you going home now?
Yes.
Okay, so I want to send home ice cream for Linda.
She was kidding because it's dairy. We don't eat dairy ice cream. We only
okay.
eat power.
I thought maybe she wanted it.
No, she was kidding.
You want
That's why I was checking in the box. I was hoping it would be OUP,
right?
but it's OUP.
You want to take up some pizza? You won't eat pizza either, 'cause I have.
No, we have dairy. It's usually not ice cream.